Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So the final day of Lord of the Rings spoiler season is here. At least I believe it is. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that because, yeah, I've been wrong before as to when spoiler season ends. There's a lot going on right now. Anyways, Dawn of a New Age is a potential new, fantastic draw card for mono white. And yes, I did say draw and mono white in the same sentence. Who knew? Enchantment for 1 and a white. Enters the battlefield with a hope counter on it for each creature you control. At the beginning of your end step, remove a hope counter from it. If you do, draw a card. Then if Dawn of a New Age had no hope counters on it, you sacrifice it and you gain for life. So this card has the potential to be, well, absolutely awful if you've got no creatures, or absolutely incredible if you've got a lot of creatures, or other ways to play with those counters. And yeah, again, keep in mind there's a couple of factors to this one, right? First of all, based on the number of creatures you have is basically how much you'll be drawing as long as this stays in play. If you play this and you've got, say, 10 creatures in play, this 2-mana enchantment has the potential to draw you 10 cards. Or even more, again, if you can have, maybe a way to reset this, maybe a way to, say, blink it, maybe a way to bring it back to your hand and recast it, maybe a way to get out of your graveyard. Obviously, resets, based on the number of creatures in play at that new time. Or a way to get even more counters on it, maybe like proliferating. So yeah, there are different things that you can do to really play with this to ensure that, well, you don't get to that end where you're like, oh no, okay, I guess I lose the counters on it, and yeah, I'll just gain 4 life. 4 life's not bad, obviously, but yeah, you don't want to be spending 2 mana on gaining 4 life, or even just drawing 1 card and gaining 4 life. That's really not all that good for 2 mana. Another thing to consider though, unlike a lot of other, draw enchantments, I'm thinking like Phyrexian Arena, this is not an upkeep trigger, right? This is an end step trigger. Meaning, hey, you get that card advantage, not right away, but again, on your same turn. So you play it, get that card advantage at the end of the turn. Again, obviously, that might not impact you if that card that you draw into isn't instant speed, but if you do draw into something instant speed, it's always nice to have. And also, you can just kind of plan ahead, by knowing what you're going to be drawing into, essentially, or what you did draw into. By the way, if I make any mistakes on this episode, or, if you hear some weird noise in the background, I'm dog sitting right now, and this dog's playing with that toy very loudly, so, yeah, there you go. Regardless, I think this card has a lot of potential. Obviously, it has the potential to be absolutely terrible if you play it in the wrong situation, or if you just don't have creatures on the battlefield, but hey, this card has the potential to draw you an absurd amount of cards. I mean, perpetually, even throughout the entire game, this can just be a 2-mana enchantment that draws you a card every single turn, which is massive. So yeah, this card has potential to, again, in some scenarios be bad, in other scenarios, in many scenarios, be very good. Again, in decks that are counting on having a good amount of creatures in play, there's quite a few decks out there that want to do that. Yeah, this can be a giant enchantment that can draw you a ton of cards throughout the game and can just be a great draw engine for you. Again, so low to the ground, incredible. And obviously Enchantress decks as well that do have a good amount of creatures in them and they're going to be going wide and can take advantage of playing enchantments. Yeah, a 2-mana enchantment, let's throw that in there as well. So on this episode, I'm going to talk about some somewhat similar cards to this one, as well some commanders that definitely want to consider this as well. I mean, again, we are in mono white. It is card draw. Mono white commanders. Anyways, let's jump into those somewhat similar cards to this one. Talk about kind of like the history a little bit of mono white card draw. And they've been getting more and more card draw lately. Thank you, Wizards, for making that adjustment. Anyways, we've got Sunset Revelry. I just want to say this as like an example of what the kind of base level of this card can be. A sorcerer for 1 and a white. If an opponent has more life than you gain 4 life. If an opponent controls more creatures than you get 2 humans. And if an opponent has more cards in hand, you draw a card. That middle one doesn't really apply, obviously. But basically, hey, yeah, this one has the 4 life. This one has the card drawn. But again, these are based on opponents having more life or drawing more cards than you. Which, drawing more cards than you, probably true if you're playing in mono white. Having more life than you, maybe not true. Yeah, this one obviously has a very low floor. It can do something good, but it does not have anywhere near the potential of this brand new card, which is 2 mana as well, enchantment that stays in play, that can draw you, again, perpetually throughout the game if you're set up properly, just a card a turn. Whereas this one, just like, you get 1 card. So yeah, Obviously, this brand new enchantment is a draw engine, a value engine that can help you out a ton. Moving on, Tenuous Truce is a really funny card. Aura Enchant Opponent. Beginning of Enchant Opponent's end step, you and that player each draw a card. When you attack Enchant Opponent or a Planeswalker they control, or when they attack your Planeswalker control, sacrifice it. So this one depends on your politicking skills and kind of the time of the game. At a certain point, obviously, it's going to be beneficial for the both of you to be like, hey, let's just not, attack each other so we can each get some card advantage out of this. This one does trigger at the beginning of Enchanted Opponent's end step, so keep that in mind on when it's going to be triggering, when that potential card is going to be drawn. And so it's really dependent upon that player not to attack you and then break the truce. I mean, you as well. But yeah, you are going to be dependent on another player for your card draw, which again, in certain strategies, you can count on for the most part. Other strategies, not really at all. So this one has a lot less, more limited application, I would say, than our new card. Next up, Tome of Legends. This is another popular card draw in mono white. Tome of Legends artifact for 2, enters the battlefield, a page counter on it. When your commander enters the battlefield or attacks you, a page counter on it, pay 1 tap, remove a page counter from it, draw a card. Now this one technically can draw you a card right away if you pay into it. Also, this one is dependent on your commander, ETBing or attacking. If you've got an aggressive commander, or if you've got a low to the ground commander that you're going to keep getting back out, or one that maybe you can blink again and again and again, yeah, you can get more counters on this. Or again, like our new card, you can proliferate those counters, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. I'd say overall, actually, this brand new one has more application than Tome of Legends because, again, you have to actually pay to get those cards drawn. Whereas with the new card, you don't have to pay. You just get those hope counters on it, and then you just kind of, for each one of those, basically draw throughout the game. Whereas this one, you kind of need to build those counters and also pay to remove them to draw those cards. Next up, Smuggler's Share. Yeah, this one, is a very good card. Pretty pushed. Enchantment for 2 and a white. Beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn. Then create treasure for each opponent who had 2 or more lands on the battlefield under their control this turn. It's a very good card. This one not only gives you card advantage, but also temporary ramp as well. This one is dependent on your opponents, though it might not be, again, if you've got ways to make players draw cards, obviously, or actually technically even ways to get lands into play for other players, too. So, yeah. This one is dependent on other factors. Obviously, this new card, as long as it just stays in play and your opponents don't deal with it, is just dependent on yourself. So do keep that in mind. Moving on, Wedding Announcement. This one is an interesting one. At the beginning of your end step, put an invitation counter on it. If you attack with 2 or more creatures this turn, draw a card. Otherwise, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Then if you had more 3 or more counters on it, transform it. Basically, again, this one is limited to just giving you 3 cards. Now, it still is very good. It is dependent, though, on you attacking. Whereas our new one is just dependent on you actually having creatures in play the time that you play it, essentially. So, yeah, the draw potential for this new card is much greater. This one obviously gives you creature tokens, too, which is nice. I guess if you didn't draw and you didn't attack, this one also flips into an Anthem as well, so that's nice, too. Different kinds of play for this one. They can both fit in the same deck, obviously, but yeah. This brand new enchantment is lower to the ground and has more potential to draw you a lot more cards. Next up, one that I think Wizards made quite a mistake on is Cosmos Elixir. This one is just kind of weird. Beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total, otherwise you gain 2 life. This one has a very low floor in that, hey, it's a 4 mana artifact that is just basically probably going to gain you 2 life sometimes. So, yeah, your opponents are incentivized to keep you underneath your total life total. Whereas the new one does not have any incentive for your opponents. It's not like, hey, if they remove your creatures, that's going to actually stop you from drawing cards. It just, obviously they could take the enchantment out, but still, your draw potential for this new card is a lot greater, in my opinion. Again, it's going to be easier for you to have, a good amount of creatures in play in a deck that has this in it, and then just play that. Or, again, proliferate a lot of ways, blink it, reset it, essentially. You've got a lot of ways that you can just keep drawing a ton of cards with it, versus this one is very dependent upon a factor that is pretty hard for you to control, keeping your life total above your starting life total. And again, the 4 for this one is gaining 2 life, with 4 mana on an artifact that is terrible. Moving on. Cigar to Splendor, another card somewhat like that, enters the battlefield, note your life total. Cool, so write that down. I always find noting things very weird. It's like, okay, you need a notepad next to you, write that down. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if your life total is greater than or equal to your last noted life total for Cigar to Splendor, then note your life total. Again, lots of notation. Accountants will love this. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 1 life. So yeah, again, this does have life gain baked into it. This one, again, is dependent on you being able to keep your life total above the previous life total. So this one is different than Cosmos Elixir. It's not based on, your starting life total. It's based on your previous one. So this one is, I mean, I guess easier in some aspects, but also harder in others, because if you are at 100 life, yeah, you need to go above 100, and then you need to go above that. You got to keep getting, larger and larger and larger to actually get to that point. Of course, your opponents can have something to say about that by, attacking you. So again, when it comes to a draw engine, this might be the best, one of the best pure draw engines in mono white. Again, the setup, yes, does require you to have a good amount of creatures in play. Now, what is actually worth, what is the minimum, I guess I should say, number of creatures that you should have in play that's actually worth even playing it? I mean, maybe like 3? I mean, drawing 2 for 2 is still not bad. That is over 2 turns, though. But like 3 creatures, is that worth it? But again, the potential of having 5 creatures in play is quite easy, again, for a deck that is going to be built, going wide, having tokens. Yeah, there can be a lot of creatures in play quite easily. Again, a creature-focused deck. So the potential draw, again, is more than Cigar to Splendor, is more than these other cards, I believe, or many of the other cards, I should say. Moving on, let's talk about the commanders that might want to consider this card. Again, there are going to be, in my opinion, a lot of them. Again, mono white decks are pretty starved for card draw in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, Giada Font of Hope. This is not a specific commander that really, is like, hey, let's just go wide and make a ton of tokens. No, this is a commander that is, I'm Angel Tribal. I get a lot of angels in play. Yeah, I'm incentivized to go wide. Therefore, hey, play this enchantment, get a lot of counters on it. And also, this deck might have proliferate effects as well. Let's just talk about it. 2/2 Angel, Flying and Vigilance for 1 and a white, very low to the ground commander. Each other angel you control enters the battlefield, additional counter on it for each angel you already control. Tap, add white, so it's like cast an angel spell. So again, Angel Tribal, incentivized to go wide, get a lot of angels in play. Again, have low to the ground angels as well, and also incentivized to proliferate because, again, of those counters. So you are going to be getting your creatures absolutely massive, and then also being able to keep more and more hope counters on this brand new enchantment. So yeah, I think Giada can definitely consider this brand new card. Moving on. Adeline Resplendent Cathar, a star for a human knight with vigilance. Power is equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever you attack for each opponent, you get a 1/1 human creature token. Tap then attacking that player planeswalker. Basically, every single time you're attacking, you're making 3 creature tokens. You can go wide very quickly. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you've got, anthem effects to make them hit harder, ways to protect them in combat, that's great, ways to get them through. But yeah, you're going to be going very wide, very quickly, and yeah, even if, let's just say you don't do anything until turn 4 even. Let's just say that, okay? Let's say you get this down, turn 3, display land, turn 3, get this down, swing on your next turn, make 3 tokens, and let's just say, for, the sake of this argument, they all get through, whatever, they're fine. You got 4 creatures. On your second main, you play the card, you get 4 counters on it. Cool, there you go. You've got, 4 potential card draw from this brand new enchantment. And that's probably good enough for 2 mana. Again, the potential is a lot greater than that. Again, if you've got some, +1 counter synergies in this deck as well, if you go even wider than that, which of course is quite easy to do, yeah, you can draw even more cards from it. Moving on. Myral Shield of Argive. Yeah, speaking of going wide, my goodness. 3/4. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. That's nice. Whenever it attacks, create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, or X the number of soldiers you control. This one just basically doubles up your army every time, kind of like a Cranko effect. So yeah, you can very easily get 20 plus creatures in absolutely no time with this. Yeah, the draw potential for the number of hope counters you're going to be getting is pretty absurd. You're going to be getting a ton of them. So yeah, I definitely think this is a slam dunk in this kind of a deck. Moving on, Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. This is quite the funny interaction, actually. 4/7 Vigilant Phyrexian Praetor, and basically doubles up your ETBs, basically shuts down your opponent's ETBs, which is nasty and amazing and terrifying. But yeah, doubling up your ETBs is huge. Again, you are incentivized to play things with ETBs, including a lot of creatures that have ETBs, so you can go wide quite quickly with that. And yeah, there's some creatures that have some great ETBs that make a lot of tokens. I mean, yeah, just like Mirror Battlesphere is a quick, easy example, but there's even greater ones as well, especially in mono white that care about, devotion, that kind of stuff. Regardless, doubling up an ETB is huge. And yeah, again, even if you just say have 5 creatures in play, normally that would be 5 hope counters, but this enchantment, again, thanks to Elish Norn, will double up its ETB, getting 10 hope counters instead. So yeah, basically draw for probably the rest of the game. Moving on, speaking of, draw for the rest of the game, Virago King Eternal, very easy in this kind of a deck to basically be a 2 mana enchantment that just draws you cards for the rest of the game. 2/4 Flying Spirit Noble. Deals combat to any player, exile any number of target non-life opponents you control. Return those cards to battlefield under its own control. Yeah, you can just keep blanking it. every single turn, essentially, as long as Brago can keep getting through. And of course, you're going to have other blink effects as well. And again, it says non-land permanent, so it can be anything, including enchantment. So just keep blanking it, keep getting counters on it based on your creature you control. You're basically never going to run out with a commander like this. Speaking of not running out, yeah, how about a proliferate commander? I mean, yeah, I could have brought up Atraxa, but yeah, here we go. Bramaz, Bled Reskos, 3/4 Phyrexian Cat. Whenever you cast a Phyrexian creature artifact spell, incubate X. Phyrexia that spell's mana value. Beginning of each end step, a Phyrexian die to your control this turn, proliferate. So, hey, you can go Phyrexian Tribal with this, you can go Artifact Tribal, whatever you want to do. Regardless, you're going to be incubating, which means that you get an incubator token with X counters on it, and pay 2 to transform it into a creature, artifact creature. So there you go. You are basically going to be making more and more Phyrexians, and yeah, you can go wide pretty quickly with that. You can get it in play, and then obviously, whenever, you know, your Phyrexians die at your end step, you are going to proliferate. That can happen up to, again, it says each end step, so that can happen up to 4 times with each trip around the table. With that happening, you get 4 more counters on your hope, and you're not going to be running out. No, in a proliferate deck, you are definitely not going to be running out of counters. So again, that is just a low to the ground enchantment that can draw you cards throughout the entire game, as long as it's not dealt with. Again, blinking effects, proliferate effects, doubling up effects like Elshnord can obviously work huge with it. So yeah, overall, Dawn of a New Age, again, has the potential to be absolutely terrible. Yes, it does. In certain scenarios, it can be terrible, obviously. I mean, there's a scenario for a lot of cards out there. But still, this one, in a color that is desperate for card draw, for repeatable card draw, I should say, as well, especially, yeah, this can be a slam dunk in many decks out there. This can draw you an absurd amount of cards. Again, if you're playing a token deck like Jetmir as well, I mean, I could have mentioned a lot more commanders. Again, basically, if you're a mono white commander and you have a decent amount of creatures in the deck, yeah, you're probably going to consider it because you don't have a lot of other options. But if you are in a mono white deck that makes a ton of tokens, oh my goodness, the amount of absurd things you can do. And again, not just mono white, other colors as well that make a ton of tokens. It's a repeatable draw effect. That again can just be perpetual card draw for you throughout the game for the right deck and the right strategy out there. Yeah, I mean, if you play this on a board with like 20 tokens in play, 20 creature tokens, I should say, you're not going to have any problems. You don't need to proliferate. You don't need to blink this. You're just going to be drawing a card at the beginning of every single one of your end steps. Again, this has a lot of potential. It has potential to be bad too. I think that, you know, mono white decks are absolutely going to love this, and other decks as well that can really utilize it too, like the ones I talked about. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on this in the comments below. I'm not really sure what's going on with spoilers today. I think everything pretty much has been released except for maybe like the commons and uncommons. There's still a couple cards that I'd probably like to talk about though that are really exciting. But yeah, make sure you're staying tuned to this channel regardless. And with that, this episode is coming to a close, so let me know your thoughts are on it in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.